I am really so pleased to introduce this year's recipient of the Albert Hadley Award. As Suzanne Tucker is someone I really admire greatly as a professional, a tireless supporter of the design industry, and most importantly, as a friend. I'm certain Albert Hadley would have approved of the New York School Interior Design selection of Suzanne Tucker as the winner of the award that bears his name. Rooms designed by Suzanne Tucker are a study in balance, modern comfort with classical correctness, and her extensive knowledge of history is evident in each element that she masterfully combines into an environment that is inviting as it is informative. Details are as important as the grand scheme of each design, resulting in rooms that are both exciting and serene. Suzanne is recognized as one of the country's leading interior designers. Architectural Digest has honored her repeatedly on the AD 100 list of top designers. She has also been continuously, I've got to get all of this right, because it's very impressive. She's been continuously included in the Elle Decor A list and the Luxe Gold list. Tucker & Marks was founded in 1986 together with her husband and business partner, Timothy Marks, with the later addition of Suzanne Tucker Home launching in 2010 with textiles, tabletop accessories, and home furnishing lines. Suzanne has written multiple publications, including her latest book, Extraordinary Interiors, which I can assure you is not hyperbole. She serves on the National Board of the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art. In 2015, Suzanne received the Design Leadership Award. In 2016, the ICAA Julia Morgan Award for Residential Interior Design. In 2017, Tucker was the inaugural honoree at the ICAA Northern California Legacy Dinner.
She did?
It did. In 2020, she was honored with a Doctorate of Humane Letters from the Academy of Art University. I'm thrilled she has room on her shelf for tonight's honor. Let's please enjoy a look at the masterful work of Suzanne Tucker.
When clients will look at my portfolio or my books, I will say to them, you're not going to find your house in here because I haven't done your house yet. That's the one that's waiting to happen. And that's exciting, always. Welcome to Tucker & Marks, the world of Suzanne Tucker. And I'm so delighted to be here. I'm so truly honored to be receiving the Albert Hadley Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm often asked, how did I start my career? How did I plan my career? But in fact, I didn't plan a career. I simply did what I loved. I am a constant student. I always say, cultivate curiosity. And I think I'm the poster child for do what you love in life and the rest will follow. I would also like to say thank you to all the patrons here tonight and those who couldn't be here this evening in supporting the scholarship programs. Without those scholarships, I know there are students and creative individuals out there who wouldn't have this opportunity. And that, I think, in giving back is enormously important for all of us to do. I went to university, I had great teachers, I took great courses, but I would have loved to have solely concentrated on interior design. I began my first job in interior design when I lived in London for several years. I worked for the late Peter Hood, who had been one of John Fowler's last assistants. He worked for a couple of the National Trust properties. So, deeply historic houses. So we always had to look back and think about restoration and preservation and conservation. And then I moved to San Francisco. It was challenging being a woman in interior design back in the early 80s. It was really a strong time for male designers, male decorators. So it was an interesting time trying to develop and grow a career and be taken seriously. I ended up trying to get a job with Michael Taylor. So I got a phone call. I was then interviewed by his accountant, who after half an hour told me the position was filled, but that Michael needed a good secretary. Now, don't ask me what possessed me to bite my tongue, because I certainly wasn't there for a secretarial position, but I wanted my foot in the door and I wanted to work for Michael and I wanted to be in design. So I started off with Michael Taylor, and within about a month, he started taking me on projects with him. And then he realized I actually did know a little bit of something. And sure enough, that's where I really got my PhD, was working on my first job with Michael Taylor. Michael was one of those sort of curmudgeonly bullies to most of his staff, but I was his pet. He took me under his wing, and I learned so much from him. I learned how to look at scale and proportion. He also taught me certainly about the use of color and light and how they play off of each other. Is it summer solstice or the winter solstice? And how are these colors and textures in this room going to transition throughout a year? So that sort of mentorship I find is hugely important. I don't take any of it for granted. I'm grateful for it all. Sadly, when Michael died in 1986, there went all that knowledge, all of that experience with him. And my then partner, Tim Marks, turned to me and said, well, why don't we carry on the business? We ended up doing that, and the rest is history. He's the managing partner. I'm the design side of things, or as he likes to say, it's nuts and bolts, and he's bolts and I'm nuts. But it's a good working relationship. We actually got married in 1996, so it's been a very good partnership all the way around. Having that pivotal moment when something happens in your career and it is that moment that you just think, oh, and that was the moment I was published in Architectural Digest. Because back in the day, there weren't that many shelter magazines. Paige Rents, the editor-in-chief, wielded a firm hand over the industry. She picked up my project, and it was truly a changing point. And I would never forget that moment. I've always had a passion for textiles, and I was able to launch a small collection. That led to a hardware collection with Nan's, mantle designs with Chesney's, dinnerware. It gives me great pleasure. So I feel very lucky to branch out into those areas of creativity. When I launched my fabric line, one of the first orders I received was from Albert Hadley, and it was a wonderful espresso brown pattern. And when I heard that Albert Hadley had ordered it, I felt as though, wow, that's my validation on the planet. I take a very collaborative approach to design. I'm not dictatorial. Everyone has something to bring to the table. I want to nurture that. I want to mentor that. I want to bring that out and develop my staff. When I ask them what their opinion is, they will come forth with an idea, and it might be the better idea. Same with clients. I like delving into who someone is, and I love working with wonderful architects. I am always the architect's advocate. I might have a cuckoo idea, and as long as they say, we don't know, but we'll figure it out, Suzanne, they're my kind of people. And that's the beauty of collaboration, and that you get something that is truly unique for that client, for those projects. That's when it all sings. I take a very personal approach to projects, and I can see the possibilities, whether it's a new construction or whether it is a remodel. But I really start with the basics of get your bones right. I start with a color palette and a mood. So is it light and airy? Is it moody and seductive and darker? All those things come into play, which I think the people who are looking at from the outside in don't realize the complexities of an interior designer's job. The shopping, the fun stuff, all that comes later. But you've got to get the bones right. You've got to get those grounding basics. People always ask me what's my favorite project. It is so varied in my work and what we do, but there's also a project that I did here in San Francisco, and it's one of my most rewarding projects because it involved every aspect, and we were so close with the clients working on it together. Well, okay, why don't we just go there? I'll take you. And here we are. Welcome to San Francisco. Come on in. So in the foyer of this house, I want you to imagine nothing was here. This house was a 5-year project where we gutted it, took it down to the studs, walls opened up, ceiling blown up, floor gone. We excavated, aligned all the beautiful sight lines, and we put it back in a French style so that it would look like it was always here from 125 years ago. In the living room, which is a very massive room, double-sided seating, we created large wall spaces for their large art collection and allowed them to expand from a smaller house to a larger house, a smaller collection to a bigger collection, anchoring it with textures and colors, a beautiful pair of commodes, 18th century, contemporary furniture, upholstery, and beautiful accessories. One of the things that's always so important in considering the elements of design is how you put them together from the old and the new. And this room is a perfect example where it's an 18th century boiserie that we brought over from France. But when I first saw it, it was dark brown. So I had it bleached 3 times. When you're a designer, you often have to ask your client for that leap of faith. But I knew it was right for the room, and you have to trust your instincts. Because those elements of design, whether it's wood, beautiful tables and antiques, contemporary art, stone, you have to bring them together with confidence in such a way that they all harmonize and they complement each other. Where I stand in this room now is the morning room. It's also the nighttime club room. It's a room filled with seduction. We put in textures, we put in all sorts of sumptuous fabrics and upholstery. A room will also then reveal itself to you. So morning or in the evening, you catch the light and you can see what the room needs and how someone needs to live in it. So with that, I want to thank you all for coming this evening to share in the excitement of awards and rising stars. And particularly for me, I'm so deeply honored to be the recipient of the Albert Hadley Lifetime Achievement Award. It truly is a most momentous night for me. Thank you.
Suzanne, we celebrate your elegant, erudite designs as well as your business acumen. The New York School of Interior Design is pleased to present Suzanne Tucker with the Albert Hadley Lifetime Achievement Award. Suzanne.
Wow.
It's heavier than it looks.
Small ruby. Oh my goodness, David Boatman. For those of you who don't know how this all works, you don't get to see the video in advance. So that was a complete surprise for me. Rather emotional, particularly for all sorts of reasons there. So thank you for that. We had a fabulous day together in San Francisco. I insisted he come to San Francisco to see my world there. And we were ready to run away together at the end of the day. Just saying, Peter. Just saying. Tim. But, you know, I give a lot of talks. I give a lot of speeches. Those of us in the industry at this age tend to do that and get invited. And I'm never nervous. But tonight, it's a very different experience when you are speaking to your peers and your colleagues and your friends and your clients and people who you revere. So to be up here receiving this is quite an emotional experience because you in the room are also the people who I revere tremendously and whose careers I have followed and whose work I just think is spectacular. And David, where are you? David.
Over here.
David, you're there. He's up here. Okay. David.
David.
Again, David and I have had a little love fest for a while. What's with David's in my life? Okay. But I want to particularly thank a few people in the room, and then we'll give her the hook, okay? And where is that teleprompter, and when's the musical number happening, right? But I want to thank Ellen Kravitz and the board of the New York School of Interior Design. And I think what you do is fantastic. And I wish we had a West Coast school as well. Plant that seed. And my colleagues who are on the board, you know, they really stuffed the ballot box really well, so thank you for that. But my fellow honorees, John Edelman, Pate Lau, did I say it right? Okay. And president of the school, David Sproul, thank you. You all are special tonight for all that we do in this industry to bring inspiration and creativity, and most importantly, education to students and to each other. I always say, if you haven't learned something every day in this industry, you're doing it wrong. Be curious, seek it out, and you don't do it by yourself. So my family who are here, my friends, my colleagues, my clients, I also have staff who are here, and there's certain people who I need to acknowledge because I don't do it without them, and I'm not sure I would want to do it without them. So Amanda Algren, who's been with me for 25 years. Amanda started off with me right in college. She was the resource librarian, and she stayed here for 25 years by my side. So that's quite extraordinary. And Vera Vandenbosch, who has been with me for over 10 years. And to Tanya Montgomery and Jeff Architect in my office. And other people in this room who are incredibly important to me, who've guided our business as well. Keith Granite, who's here. And, you know, you saw it on the video. Tim and I started a long time ago. And yes, it's true, it's still nuts and bolts. He holds down the fort. He keeps me so that I can fly high. And yes, I'm still nuts. So there we are. And I am the poster child for doing what you love. I wasn't brought up to have a career. I had a much older father who believed that you sent your daughters to college to get an MRS degree, and that you would keep house and join boards and have children and do all those lovely things, of which I've also done. But I wasn't going to be one who could just sit still. And I always loved architecture. I always loved design. And I truly just did what I loved to do. And to this day, it still excites me and it still turns me on, and I want to share the passion. And I'm ever grateful for the mentorship that I've had. And if I was to say something to students, and I think there's a few in this room, and there's an alumni table over there, is to always seek out that mentor. And it may be someone that you least expect, but that mentorship is so critical because you don't just learn what's right, you also learn what's wrong. You learn how to do things and you learn how not to do things. And you learn that it's not all pretty tassels and pictures. It is hard work, and yet it is incredibly rewarding at the end of the day. Because what we are giving in this industry to clients and to our staff, and to people who have the experience of the work that we do, is that we're giving them a surrounded cocoon of beauty. And that's a gift. that's a gift to the people that we are able to do these things for, and to our staff and to ourselves. So that gift is just something that you will only find, I think, in seeking out a mentor and then becoming that mentee to someone, that mentor to someone, because that is also incredibly rewarding when we have people who follow in our footsteps and follow our paths. And it's true, having someone like Albert Hadley order 6 yards of fabric, big deal, right? No, there was something about it that just was that validation on the planet that made you think, okay, I've done something right, to someone you revere. So, lastly, people ask me why I do what I do in the philanthropic world, because as if design isn't hard enough, right? So, unlike Nancy Reagan, whose motto was just say no, I am just say yes. Just say yes. When someone asks you, can you participate, you say yes. Can you give, you say yes. Doesn't matter how much, how small, how large, doesn't matter, you just say yes. And I will tell you that one of the most rewarding things that I have found is that when you say yes, what comes back to you is tenfold and then some. So mentorship and say yes. And I think I've thanked everybody I need to thank. I think we need the hook. Cue the music. Okay, the interpretive dance part. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.